51 alama ya reli au kwa WhatsApp tuma neno BIMAPAP kwenda namba 0764166066 ujipatie bima.
BIMAPAP, urahisi wa maisha.
They interrogated her. Dude, it's okay. Say you're feeling nice, say you're feeling good. Then you say Asante Samia, Asante Samia. So I say Asante to their president. Then they push hard and then it out again. They did that. Say I started bleeding. And they dropped me. Then I'm still blindfolded. They took me to a wall. And then told me to face the wall and then squat. Then a man came and was putting his fingers in my anus and then saying that, say you're feeling nice, say you're feeling good, say Asante Samia. Then they would do that. And then they would do that. And then they told me to turn around. I'm naked. So all this time they're telling me they're recording everything they're doing to us, or rather they're doing to me. So they're recording this. They're teaching me a lesson. So I'm stuck naked. They turn me around, say your name, your wife's name, your kid's name, where do you live, where do they go to school. I'm naked. And they removed the blindfold and said, now, so when I'm answering these questions, when I turn around, when I'm answering these questions, they are just threatening me. So like when they're abusing me, they're saying they should feel good and say thank their president for doing that to me, like Sema Sande Sana, Sande Sana. So they told me we have recorded these videos so that if you go back to your country and you say what you did to you, we shall put them online and shame you, and your kids will see this, your family will see this. Blood. And there's a man with an AK-47 standing there, like wearing civilian clothes. After that, they gave me fresh change of clothes. They were just insulting me, and took me to another white Land Cruiser, still blindfolded. So that was on Tuesday morning. It got dark. They gave me eventually at night. I don't know where we ended up to. They took me to a room. A loaf of bread. That was on Tuesday night. So I slept there. I could hear, it was like a coastal place because I could hear the call for prayers, and they come, insult me or kick me and go. Come, insult me, kick me and go. And then on Wednesday morning, they gave me in the afternoon, their tone changed. They said, now we're going to let you find you and we'll kill you. And should never come back. So they said, do you want to eat? I said, I don't want food. I didn't have an appetite. The other thing is that because every time I wanted to go to the bathroom, they'd actually go there and stand by me like they're inspecting my stool. So I could not, I didn't have any privacy. And the only time the handcuff came up is when I went to the bathroom. But the blindfold never came out. So that afternoon they gave me a painkiller. Then on Wednesday evening, they told me, now you have to learn how to walk, because I could barely walk. So they told me to remove, I was wearing open shoes, took me outside. 4 officers surrounded me, they're all in civilian clothes. They stood there, removed the blindfold, said, now you have to walk, and make sure you try and step your feet on the ground. Step your feet. Said, we're going to let you go, but don't ever come back in this country. So they taught me how to try and walk. They made me walk for like half an hour. I said, that's enough. And then the following morning, on Thursday morning, They woke me up so early, maybe around 4:35 a.m. They put my things in the car, put me in the car, and then drove for like an hour, stopped briefly, and then when they stopped briefly, they spoke outside, then drove again, then stopped again, then told me, you're going to drop whatever you're going to drop. You don't open your eyes, don't turn back, don't look at us. African passport, and I'm allowed to travel freely within the region, because that's the deal we are. Like we're a regional bloc. I did not go to that country legally, and I did not commit a crime, and that's why they did not take me to any court. So I was able to come back to this country, but when I came back, and when I go to the airport here in Nairobi, I asked the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and which is the same thing that I'm asking today. I said I was going to the hospital, and I wanted my medical report to be public of what they did to us, and I'm going to share the medical report today, and it's going to be circulated, because I'd like the world to know of the very heinous things they did to us, to break us. And they did that to silence us and put fear on us. And it's something that we learned that most Tanzanian act is, my government let me down. My government sided with Suluhu's government and said we're interfering with Tanzanian politics. We were not interfering in Tanzanian politics. We went there as visitors, and we did not hide the reasons for our visit. I've been to Tanzania before to visit another political prisoner, Freeman Mbowe, who was Chadema's leader before Tundu Lissu. I was in Uganda when Bobi Wine was under house arrest. I went to Uganda when Stella Nyanzi was in jail, visited her in jail. I've done that in many other African countries because I'm an African. And I belong to this continent, and Africa is home. So that's why we're here. So we're here to share our story and to say that our bodies might be broken, but our spirits are strong. Forgive my tears. It's just that, man, my heart is not good, man.
Hi everyone.
A killing allegedly orchestrated by individuals linked to the then Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza. In the exclusive footage captured at a supermarket in Meru, the governor's suspected henchmen are seen making suspicious purchases believed to be tools of torture and murder. And as TV47's Lennox Sengere now reports, Sniper was brutally tortured, forced to swallow 100 grams of sand, and was murdered in cold blood. His body later dumped at Mutonga River, and shockingly 2 years on, it has never been laid to rest. Take a look.
Maisha yangu hapa nipo nauma. Hata roho yangu haina raha, ina uchungu.
Nikilala usiku, mimi silali. Anakuja na anaamsha ananiambia mama niko na mateso hii na hii na hii na ile. Mimi ninajua kwamba
imekuwa ngumu kuishi bila yeye, especially ukijua mtu wako still kwa morgue, hajasikwa. Hata kuna ile time unapitia usiku unajipata una usingizi, unakaa tu kwa mawazo. So life imekuwa hard.
The intention was not to kill Sniper. The intention was to make sure that they torture him.
When the body came here on that 27th of December, it was in a very bad state. Kuna mwenye angekaribia this environment.
Mimi si mhusika na sijawahi kuwa mhusika na sikukuwa mhusika.
This is Maua Methodist Funeral Home, a morgue that has become a temporary resting place for Sniper, who was killed for being a critic to Meru County leadership. But 2 years later, his body still lies here. The suffocating silence within these gory walls still speaks of December 3rd, 2023, a silence that fell when Sniper went missing on the 2nd, only to reappear lifeless near Mutonga River 4 days later, battered, broken, dumped like a discarded truth. 2 years have passed. He is still not buried. His story screams from this refrigerated tomb. At Maua Methodist Funeral Home, a mortician revealed to TV47 that Sniper's remains arrived in a horrific state, bloated and rotting. To keep him whole, they had to invoke science, which entailed bathing him in a preserving chemicals, just for his body will not disappear like the justice that evades him.
When the body came here on that 27th of December, it was in a very bad state. It was decomposed, so we have to do a reconstruction. Hata ile kitu tulifanya at most have ku unsuture. Hakuna mwenye angekaribia this environment.
Sniper's body has stayed here so long. The morgue staff now refer him grimly as president for this morgue.
The removal of this Sniper and rest him to his final place.
So far, niye ndio body ame overstay so far. Akona roughly 1 year, 6 months. Yeah. Ndio maana tulia kumpea hiyo jina, cause hapa normally mwili zinakanga 1 week, 2 weeks.
Wakati atatoka hapa, atatengenezwa vizuri, atapakwa mafuta, ukimwangalia unaona kweli huyu ni yule anaitwa Sniper. Hata skin yake atapakwa mpaka aonekane huyu ile ni yeye, sio mwingine.
In the hilly shadows of Kabuito, Igembe South, grief hangs heavy in Sniper's childhood home. His father, Bernard Libon, now 104 years old, sits with a heavy heart of a man who has outlived hope. His mother, Ann Kanjera, with eyes swollen from years of mourning, speaks to a pain no parent would bear.
Nimemwona tarehe 2 ya Disemba, saa 5 mchana, na sikumuona tena. Lakini ambia mama niko na mateso hii na ile. Mimi ninajua kwamba mtu akiwa hajawekwa kwa mchanga ile ni pepo. Mbea anasumbua watu wa bomani, anaenda kwa mtoto, anaenda kwa nani, hapa anatusumbua kila saa, hatulali.
Maisha yangu hapa nipo nauma kudia simame. Niache
pendi kwangu peke yangu, ni mimi skufi, ni mimi kula, yani ni mimi kila kitu. Na hiyo ni life sikuwa nimezoea.
Mtoto wangu hakufa bure. Aliuliwa na Kawira na dadake. Maana wakati huo, siku hiyo ya Jumamosi, huyo mtoto ametuma.
Now, December 2023, the very day Sniper disappeared, Supu is caught on a camera buying a toy gun and a masking tape. Items investigators now believe were part of the murder weapons. 9 days later, at 11:32 p.m., he returns to the same supermarket. This time, he paces from counter to counter, appearing red. While
sisi yo kwa hii maneno imesunguzwa. Kama ni hivyo wanasema ati wanawake wana haki ya kutetewa, wanaume hawana haki.
Dr. Johansen is forced to swallow 100 grams of quarry sand by his killers.
Trachea is the windpipe. Immediately it passes the one that is you feel from the back of the throat. because when someone dies, the tissues, they stiffen. And you can't put something inside the throat of a dead person. Haitaenda bali. It normally stops as far as the cheeks, you know, and if it goes very far, it will reach just the back of the throat. But for it to go as deep as that bifurcation of the trachea, it means that there was either force, which is unlikely, because why would you force sand into a person who is dead? Or the person took the sand when he was alive. And this is one part that interested me a lot, is that this person, when he was being killed, he was probably begging for his life, or he was screaming, or he was shouting, and then probably to stop him from proceeding to shout and scream, somebody picked a mass of sand and pushed it into his mouth. But of course, in a screaming person, when the mouth opens, everything else opens. It could have been easier to identify the body had he been. It could have been easier to identify the body had he been let to stay with his clothes in the mortuary. So they are destroying his clothes in the mortuary. So they are trying to burn the clothes. I don't know whether it was intentional, and of course, somehow they didn't burn it completely, because I think they lit the fire and went to do other businesses as the fire was led to continue smoldering and burning the clothes. But I don't know. The fire went off before the shirt was completely burnt. And that shirt, when now we went to identify the body, the mortician, the guys who take care of the bodies there, they were able to help us now to identify using that shirt. Also, that bodies that are scheduled for postmortem, they are not supposed to be. Also, that bodies that are scheduled for postmortem, they are not supposed to be interfered with in any way. They said yes. Then the question, and we were like, interfered with in any way. They said yes. Then the question, and we were like, could there be some things that we could, for example, if this guy, which is above the underarm sepal, it's called the hyoid bone. So the hyoid bone had been broken, and the breakage of bone. So the hyoid bone had been broken, and the breakage of hyoid bone is normally evidence that the strangling was forceful. The other thing we found in him is that he had been battered thoroughly on the head. There was a lot of battering, either with slaps. By the way, let me tell you, even if you slap a person and that person dies, postmortem will show that you slapped him. So we found that he had, even if you slap a person and that person dies, postmortem will show that you...
To the autopsy, Sniper died a death worse than pain. His body told a tale of torture, fractured ribs, strangulation, repeated assault. He was mobbed by at least 4 killers.
Some of his ribs had been fractured because I think that 4 descended on his chest also and put sand. So the minimum number of people who could have killed this guy were 4. But it could have been more because even observers could have been there. When you ask him why he was doing this, do you know what he used to say? I don't know. Do you get what I mean? He used to tell me, I don't know. I just find myself doing it. Then I asked him, do you know that you are offending people and putting your life in danger?
His killers didn't feed him a single meal as he suffered through a full day of captivity. His stomach was entirely empty.
When we did the postmortem, we opened his stomach and it was virtually empty. Not even a grain of wheat to suggest that he had eaten mandazi. Not even a small grain of rice. His stomach was as empty as washed. He had nothing. In fact, we didn't even have any specimen to take for toxicology because he didn't have anything in the stomach. Otherwise, we would have taken the food substance that was there, packed it and sent it for chemical testing for any poison and all that. And in my inference, this guy was very weak at the time they were battering him. Very weak.
In the widening dragnet, Meru former Governor Kawira Mwangaza's brother, Murangiri Kenneth Gwantai, also known as Tali, was among 5 suspects arrested in the connection with the murder of the Meru-based blogger. Gwantai, who served as a police officer and was part of Governor Mwangaza's security detail, was arrested alongside Vincent Mureithi Kirimi, alias Supu, the man who allegedly lured Sniper to his death.
And the stories are he was killed the same time before midnight. In fact, the intention was not to kill Sniper. The intention was to make sure that they torture him. But they tortured him to the extent that they could not release him, because if they could release him, he could share this story. So the ones involved saw it would be what was it.
Ndio alikuwa na wasama na Sniper na Miriam, watu wawili ndio walikuwa na wasama. Hawa akina Subu na Murangiri walitoka wapi? Wamejuaje? Sasa hiyo ndio nasema huyu Kawira na huyu Miriam ndio wamejua vile mtoto wangu amekufa.
Sijaona mtu tangu kuzaliwa aliyefariki bila kuwa mgonjwa. Ati tu hivi mfariki. Kisema sikijui.
I will leave to blame, nikijua ni yeye alifanya nikawa widow. Sababu gani? Kama si yeye, at least ningekuwa na my full family. Ya na uwezi niambia ajui ni nini kiliendelea, anajua vizuri. Sababu kama hakuwa anajua na anajafuliwa bure.
Laced with insults allegedly aimed at them.
He
was really very vulgar to punish them. We agreed that on the 2nd of December, which was that he can also resume his Christian life, so that he can start going to church and stop. Of course, I also advised him.
Na alitumiwa pesa na deputy governor. Tunataka kujua. Hakuna mahali tulikuwa tunahusiana. If anything, mimi si mhusika na sijawahi kuwa mhusika na sikukuwa mhusika na singefikiria kuwa mhusika. Kwa hivyo sasa hiyo ilikuwa siasa ambaye wamejitengenezea. After njia nyingine zote, they crafted their own thing ya kufix governor ni mama.
Ningependa kumweleza pia wazazi wetu mahali walipo. My mother, my 2 mothers, mama ya Kawira Mwangaza, mama yangu mzazi, familia yangu, mashabiki wangu. By doing such an act,
a new 2 years frozen in time will finally be allowed to rest.
Hiyo story kiendelea, a decent home and he is doing it. So ndio unaona hii nyumba iko hapa. I think tutampumzisha hapa tu. I play with our government, especially at the interior CS. I know kuna uwezo wa kufanya kila kitu, and especially to the detectives or homicide. I know wanajua wanaelewa history vizuri. Na waomba tu they give us what we deserve. Najua banangu hawezi fufuka here, lakini tukipata justice, at least we will heal and move on.
Haki itendeke na sheria ishukue mkondo yake, hakuna kingine.
But justice seems and remains as cold as the slab beneath. The government, through the Ministry of Interior, has however promised to ensure justice is served.
Itabidi nikirudi niweze nikajulisha DCI atuambie ni siku ngapi atahitaji zaidi kuhakikisha kwamba wale ambao walihusika wamepelekwa kotini, na pia kuhakikisha kwamba justice imepatikana na wajibike. Na kama imeshindikana kukutanisha evidence na wenye walifanya, aambie wananchi, ndio wananchi wasikue wanategea habari ambayo pengine haipo.
Lennox Sengre, TV47 Crime Untold.
What's up, people? It's your girl Adiola. How many Africans still remember the story of Patrice Lumumba? In fact, I will not be surprised that some Africans have never heard about Patrice Lumumba. In this era where African schools don't really teach African history, I mean, we learn more about the Queen of England when I was growing up in school than what happened in our own history. And in case you're wondering why you should care about what happened to this man, well, this man, Patrice Lumumba, by the age of 35, had impacted a legacy that so many of our present-day leaders in Africa can only dream of. And he has inspired so many people, and even though he's dead, he's still inspiring people. Recently, the country of Belgium returned the only remnant of Lumumba, his gold tooth. And they tendered some apology, which to me is not enough. I'll tell you why. But for you to understand the gravity of what Belgium did in the Congo, we have to go back in time. Before Belgium explorers arrived in the Congo, about 4 million Congolese people had been shipped out as slaves across the Atlantic Ocean to Brazil, to the US, and of course to the Caribbean. But in 1885, King Leopold II took over the country of Congo as his own personal property. That is something that I still cannot wrap my mind around. How anybody can decide that this new country, because of its natural resources and its beauty, is henceforth my personal property. How? We really need to talk about the Berlin Conference someday, when Africa was literally divided among colonialists as if Africa belonged to them. But even before then, even before the Berlin Conference, the US had recognized Belgium as the owner of the Congo. The country of Congo, by the way, is 77 times bigger than the country of Belgium. But because he had soldiers and they had guns, King Leopold, for 23 years, he unleashed the most brutal enslavement in Africa. King Leopold II forced the people of Congo to extract their own natural resources for him to build Belgium. They were not seen as human beings, by the way, the people of Congo. In fact, animals were treated better than them. At least 10 million Congolese people were massacred in the 23 years that King Leopold II was in charge of Congo. Many of them were flogged to death. And we're talking about in the 1800s, 10 million people. The population of Belgium today is 11 million, just to put it in perspective. Now, this is different from the millions of Congolese people whom he cut off their hands and their genitals, whom he starved, whom he held their children as ransom. In fact, he cut off the hands of so many children as well, and he burned down so many villages at a time, because anytime they failed to meet the quota of extracting rubber, among other things. If you see how advanced some Western countries are today, make sure that you also know their history, because many countries were built by Africa's natural resources. Now, the situation in Congo was so bad that there was a public outcry all over the world. There were reports of widespread murder, torture, and other abuses in the rubber plantations, and this led to international outcries against King Leopold II. And so the Belgian government took control of Congo from King Leopold, and they decided to make it a colony of Belgium instead of a country of slaves that are being treated anyhow. So in 1908, Congo became a colony of Belgium, which is also a sad joke, because you can't even compare the two countries population-wise, not to talk about how big, how vast Congo is compared to Belgium. Like I said, Congo is 77 times bigger than the country of Belgium. And as of that time, if the history statistics was anything to go by, the population of Belgium was about 2 million, and the population of Congo as of that time was more than 9 million, according to Statistica.com. And that is despite the fact that for 23 years before that, about 10 million Congolese people had been killed. But then, of course, Belgium had guns, and, you know, they had the army. And though they were now a colony of Belgium, Belgium still treated them as less equal.
Under Belgian rule, natives had virtually no political voice and had no rights to own land or travel around the country as they pleased. Although they could attend primary schools, the only other form of further education available to most natives was either in Catholic seminaries or the colonial army. Only in the year 1950, nearly half a century into the colonial era, were native Congolese permitted to attend the same secondary schools as the children of Belgian settlers.
Just imagine, this is your country. People came to your country and suddenly you are not human anymore. They were not even allowed to be educated beyond secondary school until about the 50s.
While natives were encouraged to train as clerks, traders, miners, and mechanics, they could not become doctors, lawyers, or architects. In sharp contrast to British colonial policy, which generally relied on a level of joint enterprise between natives and the colonial administration, the Belgian approach was aimed at ensuring complete dependence on Belgian manpower and expertise.
It was in the 50s, by the way, that we started knowing about Patrice Lumumba, who was part of the movement for independence in Congo. He was a poet, and many of his writings at that time had anti-imperialist themes, and so it caught the attention of the colonialists. He was also a journalist and a clerk at the post office. So as he became more and more popular with agitations for independence, the authorities wanted to keep him in his place. They wanted to teach him a lesson. So after a study tour in Belgium in 1956, he was accused of embezzling $2,500 from the post office where he worked. And so for that, he was jailed for 12 months. But instead of that keeping him down, that actually made him more determined and more committed to the cause of seeking for independence. He just totally kicked against anybody coming into his country and treating him like an animal. He was only 31 years old at that time, by the way. And then in 1958, when he was 33 years old, was when he founded his own party, the Movement National Congolese, MNC, focusing on independence, state-led economic development, and of course neutrality in foreign affairs. So all this, the fact that he's not dependent on Belgium, put him ahead of his contemporaries. There were other people agitating for independence as well, but they still wanted to be dependent on Belgium. But his philosophy was that Africans don't need to depend and that they have everything they need to be self-sufficient. You guys remember we've talked about how blessed the Democratic Republic of Congo is. The natural resources, the vast rivers, and everything that they have should make them even better than Dubai of today. So that same year, he attended the All-African People's Conference in Accra, Ghana, which was hosted by Ghanaian Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame really loved Patrice, by the way. He really admired him. And this is where his speech in Ghana inspired a lot of Africans of like-minded. And then a year later, Lumumba was arrested for inciting an anti-colonial riot in Stanleyville.
Au nom des textes prétendument légaux qui ne faisaient que reconnaître les droits du plus fort. Nous avons connu que la loi n'était jamais la même, selon qu'il s'agissait des blancs ou des noirs, accommodables pour les uns, cruelles et inhumaines pour les autres.
We'll definitely put the link to the full speech in the description below so you guys can watch it, but it was packed. That speech did not sit well with Belgium. Keep in mind, by the way, that his speech that day was in response to the speech given by King Baudouin while he was
constitue l'aboutissement de l'œuvre conçue par le génie du roi Léopold II, entreprise par lui avec un courage tenace et continuée avec persévérance par la Belgique.
Il demande surtout de ne rien changer. Si on est
Usiruhusu maumivu ya kichwa.
Si on n'est pas sûr de faire mieux.
Nobody criticized King Baudouin for what he had said. He said all these things, and the president, you know, they had the prime minister and they had the president. The president, when it was his turn, he just got up and thanked the king for his speech. But when it was time for Patrice to speak, he decided to say what was actually in the minds of so many of the Congolese people. He was not afraid of what could happen to him.
Les images ont été perdues. La voix est restée.
Nous avons connu les ironies, les insultes, les coups que nous devions subir matin, midi et soir, parce que nous étions des nègres.
But as expected, that speech did not sit well with Belgium. It didn't even sit well with the West because according to history books, most European journalists that reported that speech, because you know it was televised, they were shocked by Lumumba's speech. And Western media criticized him instead of praising him for what he said. In fact, Time magazine at that time characterized his speech as a venomous attack. Many people feared that his speech was a call to arms, was going to incite Africans to start attacking them. One thing that Belgium and the US realized that day was that they would not be able to control Patrice Lumumba, and that he would not willingly give his country's natural resources to them. Now, when you have time, guys, try to read this article titled "The DRC and America's Nuclear Weapons," because throughout the 1940s and the 1950s, the Congo was actually #1 supplier of uranium to the US. In fact, 80% of the uranium that America used to build the nuclear bombs that were launched against Japan during the World War II in 1945, which made the US win, originated from the mines of Congo. So you can see how not just Belgium but the US also needed access to the resources of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So Patrice became a stumbling block for them, which is why till today there are several debates about whether or not the US, the CIA, is involved in the killing of Patrice Lumumba or not.
2 months later, with the CIA, with White House approval, decreeing that he should be assassinated. Giving independence to an African colony was okay for them as long as it didn't disturb existing business arrangements, as long as the European country could continue to own the mines, the factories, the plantations.
Also, political science professor Stephen Weissman, who served on the staff of the House of Representatives Subcommittee on Africa from 1979 to 1991, had this to say.
Now, most Americans, and even many diplomatic historians, are not aware of what I'm going to discuss here, of the fact that there was a CIA role in the assassination of Patrice Lumumba.
And then, of course, he said that this was denied.
The Church Committee, a committee of the United States Senate, investigated this and determined Lumumba was killed by Congolese rivals. It does not appear from the evidence that the United States was in any way involved with the killing. But this is a mistake. The CIA station chief, Larry Devlin, participated along with the Belgian officials and Congolese on the CIA payroll, in the decision to transfer Lumumba to this secessionist state of Katanga.
Also keep in mind that Democracy Now! In 2011 interviewed a former CIA agent who had this to say about what happened.
CIA had developed a program to assassinate Lumumba. The operation didn't work. They didn't follow through on it. It was to give poison to Lumumba. And they couldn't find a setting in which to get the poison to him successfully in a way that it wouldn't appear to be a CIA operation. I mean, you couldn't invite him to a cocktail party and give him a drink and have him die a short time later, obviously.
And so it was not a surprise after he gave that speech that within 7 days of him becoming a prime minister, rebels sprung up in different parts of the country wanting to take power from Patrice. And then Belgium said that they were going to help him to stop the rebels. But guess what Belgium did? They brought in soldiers to work with the rebels so that they could overthrow Patrice. So Patrice asked for help from the United Nations, and they said no. And so guess what he did? He turned to the Soviet Union, enemies of Belgium, enemies of the US. You know, the understanding was if the Soviet Union should help Patrice, they may now have access to the uranium to build nuclear weapons, which the other parties don't want. And so the US and Belgium allegedly sponsored to get rid of Patrice Lumumba.
They handled it by the chief of station talking to Mobutu about the threat that Lumumba posed, and Mobutu going out and killing Lumumba, having his men kill Lumumba.
And did I mention that Patrice had a personal assistant by the name Mobutu Sese Seko? Mobutu Sese Seko used to be close to Patrice Lumumba. He used to be in the army, and he used to be an informant for the Belgians. And also he used to be a journalist. It breaks my heart because, to be honest with you, the summary of Patrice Lumumba's story is that we Africans are our own problem. There was nothing outsiders could do if there was no one inside willing to compromise. It's so unfortunate that someone that was close to him became the person that was used against him. And guess what? It still happened. Congo were united Belgian military officers, and he made his confidant, Mobutu Sese Seko, the chief of staff of the army.
By aligning himself to American and Belgian interests, Mobutu realized that he could use their military might to consolidate power for himself. and create a perfectly symbiotic relationship between him and two of the world's most powerful countries.
Someday we'll talk about Mobutu. Patrice had no idea that by making him the head of the army, he just gave him the resources he needed to overthrow him.
Acting in collaboration with President Kasavubu, the Belgians and the Americans, Mobutu would...
Those of strongman Colonel Mobutu. Taken to Mobutu's headquarters past a jeering, threatening crowd, Lumumba was impassive at this lowest ebb of his stormy career. Mobutu watched as his troops manhandled Lumumba, but promised the pro-red Lumumba a fair trial.
And of course, after torturing Patrice and his men that were arrested with him, he had the firing squad shoot them, and their bodies were thrown into a shallow grave. But of course, the following morning, they decided to make the bodies disappear, and they wanted to prevent a burial site from being created so that people would not be going there. And so Belgian officer Gerard Soete and his team dug up and dismembered their bodies and dissolved their bodies in sulfuric acid while their bones were grounded and scattered. The only thing that remained of Patrice Lumumba was his gold tooth.
In January, they dismembered the corpses and dissolved them in sulfuric acid, secretly saving 2 teeth from Lumumba's body as a trophy.
And that's what was now returned. So Patrice could finally get a befitting burial in his own country. And that's why I said, personally, I don't think that it's enough to say we're sorry. I mean, with all that they did, Congo has not recovered from what the Belgians did. And Mobutu went on to be one of the worst dictators in Africa for 3 decades. And even now, Congo has not gotten on its feet. You know, I think that there should be some kind of repatriation for the damage done in Congo, for taking democracy from them. Although I will not suggest giving money or anything to African leaders as repatriation, because it would not get to the people. They would, you know, steal it, embezzle it. Let me know what you guys think to compensate the people of Congo for killing their hope. So the funny thing is, Belgium has expressed regrets, but the US has not said anything or even acknowledged its role, whether or not it was involved in the killing of Patrice Lumumba. Let me know what you guys think about that. But more importantly, if you notice, I kept stressing his age and Mobutu's age when they both made history. And it's because I want to encourage us, young people of Africa today, that we've become complacent. We need to wake up. We don't even know the power that we have. A lot of people that made impact in their time, they were young. We are leaving all the decision making about our continent in the hands of older men, many of whom do not care about our countries. Many of our presidents today in Africa still enjoy being puppets in the hands of France, for example. We have 20-something-year-olds, 30-something-year-olds that are medical doctors, engineers, inventors, doing amazing things. You know, that's your prime age, 40s, 50s. When would we step into steering the affairs of our countries as well in our prime age? If Patrice could touch the world at 35, if Thomas Sankara was only 37 when he was killed, I made a video about his life, his exploits, and the things that he did in the short time that he was head of state. We'll put that link in the description below. But if they could do all that, what are we doing with our time? Because someday we'll also become history, and people will talk about what we did or what we did not do. May the soul of Patrice rest in peace. He was indeed a father of democracy in Africa. You guys now don't know much. Guess what? I'm just keeping it real. If you've enjoyed this video, by the way, please click the thumbs up button and please share it. Just copy the link, share it on your social media platforms. And if you're yet to subscribe to this channel, what is it that you want us to do for you? You want us to beg you? All right, here is your beg right there. We just begged you. Please click the subscribe button. It is free and it's just for you to know whenever we upload a new video. All right, y'all, it's been real and I'm keeping it right up in here. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're yet to subscribe to my channel, I'm watching you on Plasma TV. Press the subscribe button and the bell button. Until next time, I'm gonna see you all later. Peace out.
Every day we regret. All these people follow me and we go fight Burkina Faso army. They should dare try Ibrahim Traoré. Burkina Faso, that he is the reincarnation of
As soon as you sit in this plane, you experience the excellence in leadership in Burkina Faso. Because can you believe it? So this was a direct flight from Accra. So why the president